Syngenta Canada and C&M Seeds present the Wheat School on realagriculture.com.
Traditionally, we associate drift with damaging a crop or a shelter belt or somebody's garden, whereas with a fungicide or insecticide, you can't really see that kind of damage. But when you look at the toxicology of the products, they're actually quite toxic to birds and certainly to aquatic organisms, fish, invertebrates, those kinds of things. So they're important in the food chain, they're important for ecological reasons. And many of our fungicides and insecticides actually have pretty large buffer zones from water bodies for that very reason. Now, the question is really, would anybody notice? And that's where I think our conscience, our stewardship as producers comes into play. I believe that we need to be good stewards of the area that we are in charge of, I guess, our land and our environment that surrounds it. So it's important to make sure that it stays healthy. And it's also, I think, a cultural value in Canada. We value clean air, we value clean water. We're known for that around the world, actually. A lot of people, when they think of Canada, they think of those kinds of things. And we want to make sure that that is actually true and that we also protect that. Some fungicides, well, all pesticides really have maximum residue limits, and some products are allowed on certain crops and others are not. And it has to do with how long they take to break down after application. Pre-harvest intervals, for example, are part of that. Some of them have to do with what that product is used for, the end use of it, and is that kind of a residue, if it exists, allowed in that end use. And fungicides and insecticides do figure into that. So, for example, if you have a maturing crop that's very close to harvest, beside or downwind of your application, and you put some of your spray on that, it may affect that producer's residue, and that may in fact affect the marketability of that product and in fact the reputation of Canada as a supplier. We know that there's a lot of non-tariff trade barriers in place in agriculture, and other countries are looking for excuses, I suppose, in some ways, to not import certain products from certain countries, and those are the kinds of excuses that we find. Small amounts of prohibited substances in small amounts of grain have been used in the past. We know about that. Yeah, so drift is important. Not only, I think the main one I think we should all be concerned about is that if you spray, you want the product to land where you intend it to land, where you need it, on the target, on the foliage or the pest that's underneath the spray swath. And you want to make sure that if you spray 100%, say, you want to make sure that as much of that as possible lands on that target. That is just dollars. It's just an economic consideration. The other one really has to do with how do you do that? We advise that spraying is best done under conditions such as right now. A sunny day. We're a couple hours back from sunrise this morning. The air has warmed up, and we have what we call turbulent conditions, and that allows for the spray to disperse rapidly and to cause very little damage where it does go downwind. We also have very predictable wind directions under conditions like this. The wind is coming from my back right now, and it'll probably persist that way for several hours before that changes. That's a very good condition in which to spray, because I can say, well, what's downwind? I can see that, and that's going to stay downwind probably for the duration of the time that I spray that field. That's an important consideration, the weather. And then, of course, spray boom and spray quality, the bread and butter really of drift management. We've always talked about promoting coarser sprays for drift management. It's the single most important thing anyone can do. And fortunately, in our efficacy work, we have shown that fungicides in particular, and to some degree insecticides, we have less work on that, do work well at coarser spray qualities. So it does give you that opportunity to spray with a slight breeze and go coarser, protect yourself from drift in that way, and be assured of good efficacy and landing on target.